Hi guys, I am going to show you how to make some images to put on screens, which we can use for decals for ceramics, or we can use for decals for putting on other printed images. There's all kinds of different things you can do with that. But first of all, you can see I have two bicycles on here, and I'm going to take these images and make them black and white. If I wanted to make a really crisp and clear image, I would probably go over to Adobe Illustrator and create a vector. Here's an example of a vector. Very crisp, clear images. That takes a lot longer to do, but you still have really nice images. I'm not worried about making vectors in here. I wanted to look a little bit more nostalgic, or like a real image. Okay, so what I've done is I've started with, I'll show you here, I've started with just a plain document. It's 8.5 inches. You can see my document here is 8.5 by 11 inches because I'll be printing it off on a clear piece of acetate that's 8.5 by 11. I've also made my resolution at 150. Okay. So then I've gone online and I found images that are okay to reuse. They didn't have any protection on them. And I've copied two different bicycles on here and adjusted their size. It's important that you have some idea. Show your rulers. So if you go to View and go to your rulers and click on your rulers, you can actually show your rulers so you can get a good idea of how big your image is. So here's my specialized bike. If I put this up here in the corner, I can put my cursor on here and I can look this close to being about 4 inches wide by, and then I'm looking on the edge. If you look on the line on the edge right here in the vertical ruler, you can see that it's close to being about 3.5 inches tall. And I actually have a ruler on my desk and I'm looking at, okay, this image at 4 by 3.5, I can use that. I can use that on a piece of ceramic material, or I can use that on a t-shirt or wherever. I can reprint it. So both images, let's see, I'm going to move this around, take this image, and look at how big it is. And it's 5 by, you can look right here, see that 5-inch mark? I put my cursor and there's a line right there. So it's about 5 inches, and this is a rough estimate, 5 by 3. So a little bit bigger, probably too big for me. So I'm going to move it down, take this bike and move it up. And to move it down, I'm just going to hit Control-T on my keyboard, and I'm left with the bounding box. Another way of doing that is if you go to go to Edit, and then go down to Transform and Scale, and we can make it a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller. So I'm going to hit Shift on my keyboard to constrain the proportions and just drag it down. You see how my size on my little size is showing on here? I'm going to drag it down a little bit more and then hit Enter when I'm pretty happy with the image. Let's take it up here and see if we like the size. Okay, so now I'm at 4.5 by about 3, almost 3 3/4. So I'm happy with that. Okay, so I'm going to start over here with layer 1. Layer 1 is my specialized bike. I need to make sure I'm in that layer. I'm going to use my magnifying glass and draw a little square around the edge so we can blow it up. And I need to make it black and white. So there's lots of different ways of doing that. There's destructive and non-destructive ways of making it black and white. Let's work with the destructive way. So I'm going to go to Image and go to Adjustment, and then I'm going to hit black and white and hit OK. So both of my images are now black and white. Okay, so I'm going to scroll up. And the next thing I need to do is play with my levels a little bit. And these grays will not turn out very nice on my screen. So I'm going to go to Image, and then I'm going to go to Adjustment, and then down to Levels. So I have this new little histogram on here. And on the histogram, I want you to pay attention to the small details. Like here, we don't want to lose a ton of details on this bike. You still want some details on here. So I'm going to bring the lights and make them a little bit lighter. And then I'm going to bring the darks and make them a little bit darker. I can make it really dark, like that, if I wanted to. Make it totally black and white. Or I can... So we can leave it like this. Actually, let's do that. I'll show you the difference. So here's what we had before. I'm going to make a copy of that layer. So I'm going to drag it down here to create a new layer, and I'm going to turn this original layer off. So now we're going to go back to Image, Adjustment, Levels, and I'm going to bring those darks back in all the way, and I'm just going to leave this image right here and hit OK. Let's turn that off and look at what it was. This is what it was. So here's an alternative way of adjusting the bike to get it ready for this screen print, but to add a little bit more detail. Okay, we're going to go to Image, Adjustment, and then we're going to drop down to where it says Threshold. And right now, this says there's 100 and this is at 128, and you can change this to give it less detail or to give it more detail. So I kind of like the fact that the chain is showing, so there's detail in the chain showing right here. So I'm paying attention to that. And I'm also trying to keep some highlights on the bike. And then hit OK when you're happy with it. So let's compare the results. Here's one way where you're losing quite a bit of detail. And then here's the second way. Okay, so let's take a look at layer 2. All right, back to Image, Adjustment, Levels, whoops, forgot to make it black and white, Image, and then Adjustment and Desaturate. Okay, and then I'm going to make a copy of this layer and do the same thing that we've just done. So I need to move my screen up a little bit so I can see where the Create a New Layer button is. I'm going to take this layer and drag it down to the Create a New Layer button and turn off this original bottom layer. Here's our new bike that we're working in now. We're going to go to Image, Adjustment, and Levels. And I want to make it a little bit darker. I want to try and get these spokes to show up a little more. I'm not sure if they're going to. Let's try changing my mediums. Okay, there we go. And then make it a little bit lighter. I'm trying to stay away from losing those spokes. There we go. Alright, that looks nice. I like the little details, the little whites. And then I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so I'm going to hide this. We're going to look at the original image, which is here. Or not the original image, but the original black and white. And then we're going to play with the threshold. So we're going to try it two ways. I'm going to try it once without changing the medium tones. And then if the spokes go away, then I'm going to go back and change the levels so I can get the medium tones to show up so those spokes show up. So let's try it. We're going to go to Image, Adjustment, Threshold. You can see that the spokes are completely gone and I want them to show up. In this case, I almost like the levels better because I've got this jagged edge on the side and I really don't like that. So I'm going to hit cancel, and then we're going to go back to image adjustment levels, and I'm going to bring the medium tones in, make them a little bit darker. Okay. And then hit OK. Now we're going to go to image adjustment threshold, and let's see what happens. Still have an issue with the pixelating. I'm going to hit OK. Let's zoom out a little and see how it looks. Yeah, I don't like that very much. But that's where we're at. So let's compare our layers. This is the bottom bike, and here's layer 2. Got a lot of pixelating here, but I do like the spokes. I'm going to hide that. And then here's layer 1. Okay, so I think I like this one a little bit better. I'm going to make some more adjustments to the edge of the bar. And then we'll take a look at this bike. And then here's one way of looking at it. And then here's the second. So I'm a little happier with the second. So I'm ready to print this off on a piece of acetate, and I will put this on a screen tomorrow and get it exposed so that I can create a silk screen of these two bikes.